Thank you for inviting me. I'm honored to be able to speak to you all today. It's early morning for me here where I'm at, but I know for some of you it's getting kind of long into the program day. So I'll do my best to try and keep things moving along and and I guess keep everyone awake, I guess. So anyway, so my name is Kirk Rockwell. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Amii. The organization, it stands for the Alberta Machine Intelligence Institute, but we've kind of just shortened that and go by Amii mostly now. So what I propose to do is, in my presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about AI for good and for all, because that is something that we hold very dear to ourselves here at Amii. But then I'll also talk a little bit about AI in the Canadian context and the broader Canadian AI ecosystem. And then I'll dive a little bit more deeply into how we do what we do here at Amii, and then kind of come back to that topic of how we're trying to implement that notion of AI for good and for all. So I guess just to start off, there's a lot of concern, obviously, now with the growth of AI. There's a lot of concern about, we're starting to understand that when you have bias and perhaps there's discrimination even in the data that you're using to build AI systems, that can lead to problems for individuals and for groups. And so, one of the things that we're always striving to do is, when we're building AI systems, is to maximize fairness and promote inclusivity. We also firmly believe in respecting privacy of individuals. So when we're building models or we're working with our clients and our partners, that's of utmost importance as well. We believe that we can build systems that are safe, that perform as they're supposed to, that are secure, and that are resistant to being compromised by people that maybe don't have the best of intentions in utilizing a model that's been developed by us or by our partners. And obviously, individuals play a vital role in the development of AI. And so whenever we work with all of our internal staff, our researchers, the companies we work with, we provide also sort of baseline support and content for developing AI governance and ethical practices. And we audit ourselves on that, and we help our companies audit themselves to make sure that they're also doing the same. How we do that specifically, I just thought I would throw this up. It's kind of a new method for us. So it's our core values, and it really speaks to what we're trying to achieve. So we're ambitious, but in that, the way we interpret that is that we're always striving forward. We're always pushing to the next great thing, but we always want to do that with, the aspiration of achieving excellence. Our next is authenticity, or being authentic. And so to us, what that means is that every person that we work with, every group that we work with, should be free to show up as themselves, bringing their individuality to the process and striving to make a positive impact. And are approachable. It simply means that, with humility, we want to be helpful. We want to work with others, because we understand that through diversity and collaboration is when really, truly sort of the magical things can happen in this field, and in fact, in all fields. So stepping away from that for a few moments here, I just thought I would set the context a little bit for the Canadian AI ecosystem. I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with what's going on in Canada, so I thought I'd provide a bit of an overview on that. So in March of 2017, the Government of Canada launched the world's first national AI strategy. And the primary goal of that really was to focus on the talent, the research, building the ideas, the talent, the teams, to create sort of this national ecosystem. Last year, we were fortunate enough here in Canada that the government renewed and expanded that strategy, this time with a 10-year focus on the same things, recruiting and building that research talent, but also doubling down in a couple of other really important areas that I'll get to here. So the primary, initiatives that were created under the first version of the Pan-Canadian AI strategy were the creation of Canada's 3 national AI institutes. So you can see them at the bottom of the slide there. We're Amii. There's also Mila in Montreal, Canada, and the Vector Institute in Toronto. But so as of today, or well, I'm not sure if it's as of today, but the Pan-Canadian AI strategy has now invested $568 million to establish sort of our national ecosystem. And so, as I said, some of the goals and the objectives of the strategy have remained the same. So propelling that world-leading research, attracting and retaining top scientists and top talent. But then importantly, what was added was resources to really accelerate commercialization of AI technologies. So working directly with companies to try and get technologies into the marketplace that help, that help businesses and organizations in multiple ways. In addition to that, it was also to support the advancement of and creation of AI standards for the world and for Canada, and also to provide research infrastructure. So with that, we've also now been able to make significant investments across the country in supercomputing infrastructure that's accessible to all of the groups in our network. Just in terms of a bit of geography here, I thought I would put that up in case everyone's not familiar. So Amii is in Edmonton, kind of on the western part of Canada, Mila in Montreal, and Vector Institute in Toronto. That's not to say that these are the only cities in Canada where there's AI work going on. Of course, there's things happening in Vancouver on the West Coast and really across the country, but these are the locations of the primary investments in the form of the 3 AI institutes. Each of the AI institutes was, I guess, in a sense, founded or is supported by, some of the world's leading AI pioneers. At Amii, we have Dr. Rich Sutton. He's from the University of Alberta. He's also one of the founders of the first DeepMind office outside of the UK is here in Edmonton, and he was one of the founding members of that as well. He's also the inventor of the subfield of reinforcement learning, which is a subset of machine learning that I'll touch a little bit on later. Yoshua Bengio from Mila and Jeffrey Hinton from the Vector Institute both shared the Turing Award in 2018. So you can see we've got some incredible leadership in terms of science here in our institutes. So now I'll go back and dig a little bit deeper into how we do what we do here at Amii. It's all, each of the institutes have their own model, their own way of working with organizations and conducting their operations. I'm obviously most familiar with Amii, but we do work quite close with the other institutes as well. But from here forward, I'm going to talk primarily about Amii. So this graphic we tend to refer to as kind of our virtuous circle. So you can see we've got Amii in the middle of 2 very important aspects of building an ecosystem around any technology, really, but around AI. So on the one hand, you've got that early stage work that's happening, the leading edge research, not only in academic institutions, but industrial R&D as well. And that's generating the knowledge, it's generating the talent, which we view as really the most important aspect of any sort of endeavor like this is creating the individuals that have the skills and the talent to advance technology. And then you have uptake and development of these technologies by industry. And so then we also have positioned ourselves to work with those companies to help them implement in all different ways, regardless of sort of where they're at and what sector they're in. And then you get that sort of circular feedback loop happening where you're getting investment back into the research and more of those activities happening as well. So I'm not going to go through all of these individuals, but you can see here are our lead researchers, our research fellows, we call them, or our CFAR Canadian AI chairs. So there's, we've been able to grow that significantly because of the Pan-Canadian AI strategy. And so most of these are at the University of Alberta, but not all. Some of them are across other parts of Canada as well. Here's just a little snapshot of some of our outcomes. So basically, the Institute here was actually started in 2002. So we celebrated our 20th anniversary this year. And that's quite a long period, actually, if you think about it in terms of the field of AI and machine learning. 20 years ago, not that many people were seriously investing in that space. So over that period, a lot of things have happened. We have consistently ranked number 3 or in the top 3 in the world in terms of research in AI, machine learning, and data mining. The 2017 Pan-Canadian AI strategy allowed us to recruit 22 new researchers. With the renewal of that strategy, that number is going to grow again significantly, probably to just about double that again in the next 5 years. Alumni, so individuals that have come through our institute as researchers or grad students or what have you that have gone on to start companies have raised over $600 million in venture capital. 450 million of that was in Canada, the rest, in other places, often in the US. Companies that have worked with us as a part of our programs and support have gone on to raise $200 million in venture capital as well. We've worked with over 100 companies. The majority of those are in energy, health, and agriculture. And now our team has, so I showed you the primary lead scientists, but when you consider all of the individuals that work with them, we have over 400 scientists within our institute advancing leading edge AI and machine learning science. So I won't go into these in any detail with the exception of perhaps reinforcement learning at the top, but these are the primary research themes that our group is engaged in. So reinforcement learning, precision health is obviously becoming a big one around the world as the population ages and we're all trying to save money as public health systems and things like that. Games and game theory, robotics is a big one. Social network analysis, heuristic search, natural language processing or NLP, deep learning, privacy, bias, and explainability, data mining, and information extraction. And I just wanted to touch on reinforcement learning because it is an interesting space that is gaining in interest and popularity. And it's really of importance to us because, as I mentioned earlier on, Dr. Rich Sutton really invented this field. And how it differs from some of the other machine learning techniques is it learns by doing. So it's not the same as labeling a bunch of data and having your model learn from that data and then being able to make decisions. It's reinforcement learning is really about providing a reward or an incentive for something, and then the system goes out and does a bunch of things and figures out the best way to earn that reward. So it's really suited well for things like automation and optimization. We're finding areas like industrial process control, areas like that where you can, there's real-time process controls that can be tuned automatically. This technology is really demonstrating a lot of utility there. It's one of the key reasons that, as I said, DeepMind set up its first international office in Edmonton was to access the scientists that we have here in the region with expertise in that area. And likewise, Google Brain has since done the same. So one of the things that we're very proud of that we've accomplished at Amii is sort of taking a different approach to how we work with companies. So I have a lot of experience over the years in working with centers of excellence and research institutes and things like that. And it often can be intimidating and daunting or fruitless for companies to engage with them because it often comes down to, sort of a misalignment of goals. Researchers are motivated by developing solutions to problems that, they can teach to a younger generation, that they can publish articles about in scientific journals. And, lots of times if that works well for a company, then great. But oftentimes it doesn't get to the level of specificity that companies need unless they're already quite advanced in the technology. So what we've done is developed what we call our AI adoption spectrum. So we've identified these 5 steps: exploring, initiating, implementing, operationalizing, and advancing. And So at each of those stages, we've come up with defined, I guess, parameters that place them in or in one group or another group. And then we've identified services or programs that we can provide to that company specifically to help them with their challenge. And one of our biggest beliefs is that we attempt to build capacity within companies to do this work themselves to the extent that it's possible. So we recognize that the talent and the skill sets, available to work in industry are really becoming the limiting factor. So it's better for them to be able to do it internally, so they don't have to keep going back to a provider of some kind over and over and over. So with that in mind, I'll just show you some of the services that we have in alignment to this adoption spectrum. So one of the first places we often start with companies is with education and training. So most companies now, unless they're specifically in the field of AI, are pretty new into it. And so it helps for us to provide them with some foundational training so that they can speak the right language. They know the terms that they can use. They can begin to explain to different levels of their team and executive using common vocabulary and common words. And they can begin to understand what it might take for them to implement a project. We have specific programs for startup companies. As I mentioned, that's something that is important to us, is trying to get new companies off the ground and growing quickly. So there's a few challenges that startups have. As you can see here, they tend to move quicker than a lot of other companies. They tend to be short-staffed, so they don't have a large team, and they quite often don't have very much money. So we've developed ways to work specifically with them to help them get to the goals that they kind of need. And so sometimes we'll do things as a cohort or a group. So that it can be, and anyway, we're having quite a bit of success in having companies come into these startup programs. We have a stream of services that we provide that we call our industry programs. And so really what this is depending where a company is at that we're working with, we can provide them with multiple levels of activity. So essentially the first one, as I said, is really identifying and understanding the business cases that are really appropriate or applicable using AI. Often there's a misunderstanding that a company will come in, they'll think, well, we have data, we have a problem, surely AI can fix it. But as I'm sure everyone on the call understands, there's a lot more to it than that. You need to be very specific about what the problem is you're trying to solve, and then understanding what barriers are in place to do that. What are the proper questions that you can put before an AI model? So we help them through all of that. We do what we call planning and initiation sessions, where we work with their team to help them identify specifically what they might want to try and solve. If they end up going further with that, we can, help them identify all of the risks and what it's going to take in terms of resources to implement a project. And then we also provide coaching and accountability so that they can check in with our experts as they develop their internal technologies. So if a company does come along and they are, ready to go deeper into AI, they've definitely had some success with projects. They now want to start something that is beyond perhaps taking something out of literature or off the shelf, if you will, and implementing it. They need to actually develop a new technique or a new model. We have a program that we call Advanced Tech, which really is where we do start to bring in our more senior research talent to help work with that company on specifically developing out a solution that might work for them in their particular case. And internships and residencies is something that we've had a lot of success with recently, and it's something that a lot of companies are coming to us with interest in. One of the things that we've done is we've taken a bit of a different approach to an internship and residency than what is often seen. Often internships involve, a student coming from, taking a pause or a break from their regular study to to go and take on a short-term project within a company and work with them. One of the challenges, or a couple of challenges we found with that, is it really often ends up being more about the learning experience than it does about the solution being provided for the company, which is okay if both parties understand that that's what they're getting out of it. So what we do instead is we'll actually hire an internship or a resident to work on our team. They'll be embedded within our organization. They'll be surrounded by peers and mentors with experience working specifically in applied AI with companies, probably with a mentor who has experience in a given field. And that person will be dedicated 100% of their time to working on a problem that's presented by the company that they're assigned to. So at the end of the day, the company really is gaining access to more than, they're really getting their specific problem solved. And they don't have the risk of hiring somebody that doesn't have that much experience, because we're really supporting them in doing that. At the end of it, ideally, the company then hires that person and they become sort of their new lead of their AI team or some other important technical position within the organization. We also have a career program. So we have a funnel and a pipeline, and we have a specific talent team that helps us provide extra value to learners in the field or graduate students in the field, so that when they are in the midst of their PhD or master's program, we provide them with the opportunity to work either with us or with companies to gain a bunch of different skill sets that they probably wouldn't get just by working in their own organization. The idea here is that then we can call on them when we have, a need for somebody to fill one of those residencies or internships, or even just if we need to hire or we need to recommend somebody if a company is looking to hire. So, and we're recruiting around the world for this. It's really a great program. So that's kind of how we do what we do. I wanted to point out, just, I guess, returning back to this sort of AI for good and for all approach that we take. So one of a fairly significant program that we've been running for the last 4 years, I believe, is and completely supported by the province of Alberta. So our provincial government here has essentially a carbon taxation program on large emitters that then funnels money into a fund that's used for technology development, for emissions reduction, and things like that. So we were fortunate enough to be a recipient of some of that money. So we created what we've called the Reducing Emissions with Machine Intelligence program, or REMI. So as a part of Canada's climate plan, the goal was to reduce emissions by 40 to 45% below 2012 levels by 2025. And there's large fines that are proposed for organizations that miss the mark. So as I said, these, sorry, there's a fire alarm going off in my building. I think it's a drill. So to meet the targets, the government and industry are really looking for ways to, innovative ways to reduce their emissions. And this is actually something that can be quite cost effective in terms of working with us. So we use all of the methods that I talked about above. So supporting startups, supporting industry programs, providing that advanced technology programs, all of those things we've applied to working with companies. And so we've worked with companies that are in traditional energy sectors, electrical transmission. We've had a stream that was specifically for agriculture, so reducing emissions in agriculture, and in new renewable technologies and clean technologies. And so it's been a really successful program. It's still running. And so we're always interested in talking to companies and individuals that are interested in working in that space. And so then just, I guess, the one, going back, I guess, a little bit more, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about our sense of for good and for all, and how we take an approach to principled AI. So one of the first places we started when we started to think about what our responsibilities are and what our practice should be in achieving this. So we looked to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So whenever we work with industry or another partner, we we have mechanisms that we use to actually evaluate for proposed projects and make sure that they're not having negative impacts in alignment with any of those goals. So further, I guess, our responsibilities, we believe that, we take an ethics and a rights-based approach. So we do that in a few ways, right? Through fairness and non-discrimination, privacy and security, accountability, and professional responsibility. So as it says here, it's not just enough to sort of sign on to these things and say that we're going to do them. We actually build and use an audit our strategies to make sure that we're in accordance with those three categories. And in the role that we're in, we often find ourselves at the center of collaborations, whether that's with companies, whether it's with academic institutions, or whether it's with government agencies. And so as a convener and collaborator, we believe that we have a role to play and that we can play that role in making sure that the high standards of excellence and those values that I talked about earlier are upheld. And we do have mechanisms to do it. I'm not going to go into it in that much detail, but we do have a sustainable goal rubric. So whenever we're looking at a project, we make sure that we're scoring it against that. The Government of Canada has also developed an algorithmic impact assessment. So whenever you're looking at implementing a project, there's a series of questions and an assessment that you can complete to make sure that it's meeting the appropriate levels of risk. We use data sheets and for data sets. So we look at the actual data that we're using when we're working with a company to try and better understand the sources of the data, the status of the data, and make sure that things like privacy and bias are not going to become significant factors in that. And then we also have sort of a model card, which says, as we're working with, sorry, they are asking me to leave the building. I'm almost done here. So model cards, which basically say if we're going to develop an AI model, we have documented that intent, all of the ethical considerations that go into it before we actually will agree to implement a project. And so we do that across all of our programs, all of the industry sectors we work in. And it's something that we view as incredibly important in the world today, and are certainly happy to help organizations implement these things as well. So I guess just to summarize, that's I hope I've shared some things that were interesting to everyone, and I'm certainly happy to connect further at any time, and would love to hear from you. So with that, thank you for your time.